Here's the inside of this box. There's 8 body mount bolts. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut off the heads of them. These never come undone without breaking or without being a pain in the ass. So I always just cut them off. You can see there's 2 there, 2 over there, 2 in the back there, 2 in the back here. So that's a total of 8 bolts. And then the tail lights, which I cut the wires on. The license plate was in the way. And other than that, I don't think I'll have to take anything off. So now this whole thing should lift off. I have the spare tire, old spare tire crank there, which will come off with the bed. And I'm sure there's stuff underneath that's wire tied to it or whatever. Now, I'm taking this box off because it is a lot easier to work on a truck without the box on it, especially when you're setting up a 4-link setup. So that's just the main reason, I guess. You can get much better welds, you can measure stuff a lot better, and you're not sitting underneath the car trying to work. So yeah, I'm just throwing this box off and we'll get to it. I have the box off, so now what I'm gonna do, first off, is I'm gonna start with this notch, because the notch is gonna have to be there and it's a little bit less guesswork than the 4-link. You can see that this is actually a leaf spring truck, which sucks. So I gotta run a 4-link in this, and that's a lot more work to set up versus the standard trailing arm setup, which comes on most of these C10s. You can see there's the leaf springs. Usually the trailing arms come up to a cross member that goes here and there. So you just put the bag in place of the coil spring. It's much easier, but again, this is a leaf spring truck, so I gotta do it a little differently. But anyways, the notch kit is gonna be the same basic thing. Here it is. Pretty nice setup here. It's got the bends already in it for the shaping, and it's got holes that should line up with some of the existing holes. Basically, I'm just following the instructions, and I'm gonna start off by placing this notch approximately where it's supposed to be and marking where I need to cut out. Now I'm only cutting out the spot for the notch itself, so you can picture kind of sort of like that, just roughly, just only cutting out that one spot. So I'll set this up where it needs to be. Approximately, you can only put it in so far. Now you can see it's right on the edge of this oblong hole, which all the frames have. You see this oblong hole where my thumb is? It's right along the edge of there. So now I'm going to take and scribe inside there the general shape, and I'll start cutting it until it sort of is in the spot where it needs to be. Now, I'll do that, cut that out, and then I can drill all the holes and bolt that up into place. Now on the leaf spring style trucks, there's going to be a mount on the inside, I believe, for the coil springs. So you got to change that a little bit. Again, this is just different. And you can see this is nice and rusty, crusty, trusty, nasty. So that's the starting point. So I finally got the leaf springs out, and I took this rear end outside and I cleaned it off. There was a bunch of grease on there. I'd never seen one that bad. It was probably like a couple inches thick at spots. It was horrible. Anyways, I have this frame on jack stands and under there, and I have it set approximately where I think ride height will be. Now the notch kit comes up to about here, and I measured, and that's about 5 inches from where the axle is. So that's kind of how I determined where ride height would be. So when you set up a 4-link, you want to start based off your ride height. So I got off these upper leaf spring purchase. You're gonna have to get these off if you have a leaf spring truck to run the 4-link, if you want to run it on this side of the frame anyways. So basically these were just held in by rivets. You can see right here there's some rivets. These are big heavy duty rivets that are put in at the factory. They're very strong, never break, therefore they're really a pain in the ass to get out. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can cut off the heads and try and pound the bracket off, or you can drill out the rivets like I did over here. This side, one side I cut, the other side I drilled to see which one was easier. I guess the drilling probably takes a little bit more effort. They're both about the same amount of time, but first I started with a small drill bit, then a larger drill bit, and here's 3/8 was the final one. And you can see here that here's the head of the rivets. There's the head of one of the rivets. There's another one, kind of drilled off center, but I just center punched the center of the head and then drilled them out. And then it leaves behind this little tab here, which you gotta cut off. So yeah, you can either cut them off or grind them off, or you can. So yeah, you can either grind them off or drill them out. Either way, it's kind of a pain in the ass. I'd probably like to drill them just because it's a little less mess. You have metal shavings instead of metal dust. So I'm working on this GMC here, and I ordered a sort of a bolt-in kit, and they are never bolted. I tell you that much right now. Don't even waste your time thinking that it's gonna bolt in. Anyways, right here I have this notch, this little mini notch that's supposed to be bolt-in, but yeah, it's not really lining up with any of the original rivets. So what I did on the bottom side here, there was 4 rivets. You can see where I ground off 2 of them because the holes didn't line up with the bracket. So I just ground them off, and I'm just gonna lay this over the top, drill my holes, and weld the shit out of this thing. And then over on the shock mount side, there is a bolt that holds in the bottom of this bracket. You probably can't see it, but there is a bolt in there. It comes through. You can see under the frame there, it's right there. I am actually going to weld this bottom shock mount on, or weld the bottom of the shock mount on, and then cut off and remove that bolt. That way, again, this notch will sit up flat against it. You can see this is approximately where it's going to be placed, except it's placed on the outside of the frame. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to have to weld that shock mount, ground off a few rivets from underneath there, and then I can actually cut my notch, which I have marked here to cut. Got this first notch welded and bolted in. You can see I used the grade 8 bolts that came with the kit, and then I did some skip welds along here. Now one thing is that this does not exactly line up flush here. I'm not really going to worry about it because it's strong enough, but if you wanted, you could add a 1/4 inch piece of rod in here and do some wide weaves. I might end up doing that in the center here. I welded it in there, all around here, and bolted it. No, I didn't use all the bolt holes in the bracket, but with the weld it's good enough. I don't like just bolting stuff in. I'd rather weld it and bolt it. Just a little insurance. And now I'll just do the other side. You can see here that I boxed in front of this notch here because that's where my bag is going to mount. So I'm going to actually physically mount my bag mount right onto that boxing plate. Whenever you do something like this, it's always good to box. It's always a lot stronger. And the way to do that is, I'll show you on this side, as far as fitment goes. You want to have your pieces corner to corner. That's what it's called. So you can see in there that you literally have the inside corner to the inside corner, so you can get as much weld on there as possible. So I just cut it to shape, and then I took just a C-clamp like this, and I clamped, and I started on one way and worked my way down. So it has a curve to it, so it has a little bit of curve that follows the frame rail. Now this here was a piece that was already formed by the company that I bought the kit from. It's not perfect, so I had to put a little spacer in there and do a little weld, but it's more than strong enough. As you can see, this side looks a little bit better. But anyways, that's that. I have this side welded up, and now I have my bag plate here. which I ordered a long time ago. This is not from the kit, but this is one I had sitting around and actually planned for it to fit in here perfect. It's pretty damn near. So you can see that'll be corner to corner. I can weld all the way around on each side. And then I'll show you what I do on the rear end side of the deal.